Welcome back to the Just Cash Wellness YouTube channel, coming to you with another episode of the Fully Nourished Podcast, a place to explore where female physiology and feminine energy dance together to shape our life experience. I'm Jessica Ash, functional nutritionist and integrative health coach, and this podcast is really about taking both a scientific and a spiritual look at why we as women have become so completely burned out, almost on a soul level, and the real physiological consequences to that burnout. I want to explore together what it looks like to reclaim our feminine radiance and become deeply and fully nourished. With that being said, just as a reminder, everything in this podcast is for education and inspiration only and is not intended as medical advice. Please talk to the appropriate professional if necessary, and please use common sense before making any changes to your diet and lifestyle. Hi, Arielle. Thank you so much for being here.
Hi, how are you?
I am so happy to talk with you. I think I followed you forever, and I think I originally found you when you were one of the only people speaking out against how essential oils might not actually be that healthy, and you revolutionized the way that I looked at herbs. It's like, duh, of course we want to appreciate the whole herb, but I don't think I ever really thought about it that way until I learned from you. And so I think of you as just this like herbal queen, but I'm sure there was a huge journey getting you to this point and a lot of probably trial and error and learning lessons. And I just want to know kind of like, what is your background? What got you here to be this like herbal queen, I guess we'll say.
Thank you. I'll accept that title happily. So, I grew up in like what I would say like a holistic household, like my mom always was giving us natural remedies and food as medicine and all of that first, before kind of outsourcing to like allopathy. But as in my early 20s, I was kind of like, you rebel against what you know. So
For sure.
I remember being at work. I used to be a hairstylist, and I remember being at the salon and I was like so sick and I did not feel good. And my friends were like, you need to go to urgent care and you need to go get a Z-Pack right now. And I like had no idea what that was. And so I went there and I took my first little pill, and like 2 hours later I felt so good. And I was like, this is like, what's going on? So I was very like, I was introduced to all that late. And so then I was like, oh, antibiotics are great. Like, this is also amazing. Like, whatever.
Yeah.
And then I met my husband. We got married. We decided to start a family, and which I think happens to so many women once they start, kind of thinking about creating life and, having responsibility for something else besides yourself in terms of like their well-being. I got snapped out of that reality really quickly. And I was like, oh, this isn't what I want, like that was fun, whatever, but like, it's time to go back to like what I know and what's good for me. I ended up having like a pretty dramatic birth in the hospital, and I had hired a CNM, certified nurse midwife, to attend me during labor, but it was going to be in the hospital, and it ended up just going super out of control. And I ended up with an emergency C-section. And I just remember laying there in the hospital, holding my daughter and just being like, the only person that like can really actually truly has this little baby's well-being at heart is me. And like nobody else is going to be able to take care of her, like, so without an agenda besides me. And so I knew that like, I didn't want to put us back in that position of like having to rely on someone who like profits off of our like distress and poor health. And so that was what really just like lit a fire under me to like, just learn everything I could. And I was lucky that I never ended up getting into essential oils. I think I was gifted like a little essential oil salve at my baby shower. And I think one of my friends, a friend of mine, had like mentioned that I had it. And she was like, oh, I wouldn't use that. Like, you might want to look into essential oils a little bit more. And she sent me a couple articles. And so I was like, it was just like before it even started, that was over. Because, if that wouldn't have happened, there's probably a pretty good chance I could be some lead sales rep for an essential oil company right now, but luckily my friend guided me off that path, and I was just able to just go full on into herbs. And yeah, so, you know, my daughters never had Tylenol or ibuprofen. Neither of my girls have. My second has never, I mean, my second was born at home and never even seen the inside of a medical office, which is pretty cool. But, you know, everything, my motherhood continues to test me in ways that, like, even funny things, like we got lice a couple of years ago, and I was like, am I gonna go buy tea tree essential oil? Like, am I gonna be able to do this? You know, and like, I just continually like, I continuously like amaze like our capability to heal, and with like using whole plants and just like what nature truly and God truly provide, like at its core, you know?
Wow, that's amazing. Like, I feel like the love of the mother, like it awakens something inside of you that just, it's unstoppable.
Yeah, it really is. And I see it with so many women, you know, like we get pregnant and we find like our purpose, even like all that creation energy just like births so much.
Right, right. So you were a hairstylist, and then how did that journey come to where you are now? I mean, you have this incredible company, Subluna.
Yeah, so I started my herbal company when I was still doing hair behind the chair. And, you know, that always happens really organically, I feel like, because you're making medicine and then you're sharing with your friends and family, and people want to buy from you. So I opened a little Etsy shop that's now just like a giant, like it's grown into like so much more. But I was selling remedies to my clients. And, you know, as I was really beginning to embrace my inner healer and kind of come into myself as that part of my identity, you know, my clients behind the chair were recognizing that too. And so, you know, we were having a lot of conversations like about their health that we hadn't before. And, you know, conversations like, I think I have PCOS, but my doctor keeps telling me I don't, or I have endometriosis and, you know, I don't know what to do. Like, you know, where do I start? What should I start looking for? And, you know, as I'm realizing like as what's coming out of my mouth and I'm telling them things to like start looking into, I'm shampooing their hair with these artificial fragrances and endocrine disruptors as I'm telling them like you have to get rid of all your endocrine disruptors. So it was just a really weird reckoning for me, because in my life, you know, I was always very like natural, and I didn't have a lot of like excess, like, you know, toxin, whatever, you know, like I didn't wear a lot of makeup, and I didn't use like scented detergent because my mom never did, you know. But the hair care, because I was like brought up in the hair care industry, you know, I graduated high school a year early, went straight to hair school, and I worked for a manufacturer that taught us what every single ingredient does and why their products are so great compared to everything else out there. And so I had that conditioning of like, I'm giving my client like the best in like the hair world, you know, like these are the best products, quote, that they can use. They're professional. And also like it's probably harming their health. And so like, how do I carry being a healer and being a professional hairstylist at the same time? So long story short, I ended up at the same time I was kind of messing with my own hair care. And so I decided I was just going to like stop using all of it and see what happened. And it was great. Like after a couple months, like my hair just like had never been better. And it was like so soft and shiny and had so much volume. And my clients were like complimenting me all the time. And so I started telling them what I was doing. And I ended up like, I was by that point, I was kind of making some products like hair care products and selling them in the salon and stuff like that. And I think when I got pregnant with my second daughter, I knew that it was like my period to rest, you know, and like not work behind a chair 40 hours a week. And so I quit my salon job. But right before I did, like I was getting really busy with clients who were like hearing like this woman like will wash your hair with clay, you know, and they were so excited about it. So I think there's just was like a huge need for this, especially like in our industries where a lot of women are like, they want to use, you know, like shampoo is really hard to find like a true non-toxic shampoo. And when people discover that there's like just ingredients you can wash your hair with in your kitchen or your garden, they get so excited, you know? And so it's a really fun thing. And so that was one of the things that, you know, Subluna has kind of morphed into, is not only with herbal remedies, but also herbal hair care too. And it's cool that I can take this message now globally instead of just like beyond my little chair, you know, and my little one chair salon. So
yeah. Oh my gosh, that's so incredible. I didn't know all of that. Like because I do think, because I have like wavy slash curly hair, and I feel like with the explosion of TikTok and all of this, it's like there's like many layers of beauty care, and now the curly girl method or like the wavy girl method, and it's like these like I feel like it's like rocket science. Like you have to, dip your hair in a bowl, and I can never get behind it. And what kills me is when you're using all these products, the amount of just plastic you're throwing away, the amount of products you're going through, and it's like, if I don't use this perfect product, my holy grail product, my curls just fall flat. And there's something about it that just feels very like almost like a prison. Like I am stuck using this stuff forever. And to be free of that, you were the first one to really at least expose me to the idea of sovereign beauty and this idea of like sovereign hair care. And I bought your sovereign curls guide and your hair guides, and just using like the Rasul clay and the how do you say it, the shiitake powder? Okay.
Yeah.
I think in my head I always call it like shiitake, but I'm like, I know it's not that, I just call it that anyways. But it works so well.
Yeah.
It's crazy like how bouncy your hair can feel and how clean it can feel when you're just like, I'm washing my hair with dirt.
Yeah, literally.
It's so amazing. So amazing. I guess I'm like asking this because selfishly, but I want to know what your hair care routine is, because your curls are always so beautiful. You always just have this like natural glow about you. But what does your hair care look like for a week? Just so women can really understand, like, it doesn't have to be this way. I don't have to be a slave to my hair.
Totally. Well, let me tell you that when I worked at my salon and I was immersed in the shampoo world and all of the things, all the big style rock star hairdresser world, I still would go like forever without washing my hair. So like, okay. I think I'd gone like one time I went like 27 days in between shampooing. And
wow.
So, which is like crazy, And so I was always very used to being low maintenance with my hair. So now my hair care routine doesn't look like much at all. Like I wake up and I might spray it with a little water, but otherwise, like, I just kind of let it do its thing, and I'll get it wet when I'm in the shower. And then I'll use like maybe an apple cider vinegar rinse. My hair tends to get more dry and dull than it does like oily. And so I'll use like an apple cider vinegar rinse in the shower once in a while. And it literally takes like 30 seconds. Like I used to back in the day when I used shampoo, and you have a lot of hair, I'm sure like washing your hair is like a chore. Like your arms hurt and you're like combing through all the tangles and all of that. And now I just like do an apple cider vinegar rinse, run a wet brush through it, super easy. And then, when I start to feel like I need a deeper cleanse, I'll go for like a Rasul clay or like a soapwort powder. It just kind of depending on like my mood and what I feel like my hair needs.
That's awesome. So like very intuitive. It's not like the structured routine.
Yeah. And that's the whole part of like what I think is so cool about this is like, I think hair care and like what you do can be very comparable in the way that like we really want like a protocol. Like there's a part of our body, of like our mind, that's just like, give me a list, tell me exactly what to do, send me the products and I'll do it. But that's still like outsourcing in a way, you know what I mean? And like, I don't think it's possible to have true like sovereignty, true wellness in that mindset. And of course, sometimes like it's wonderful to have someone hold your hand or like walk you through it or like, guide you through the process, which, ultimately is like, what you and I are here for in our roles. But, it's introducing this deeper concept of like body literacy. And like for the first time, women are able to like feel like what their hair truly feels like when they're not, assaulting it with chemicals essentially. And like what that means for like their internal health. What does it mean when my scalp gets really dry out of nowhere? You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like, what does it mean when my hair, all of a sudden my hair fall increases, and they can realize that like, this is a language of your body and like that your body's teaching you. And then you can respond. And, you can reach for different herbs and you can choose different cleansers if you need to. And you can take different, you can change your nutrition a little bit or start taking bitters before meals. And then all of a sudden, like, it's beyond just like washing your hair. It's like changes the landscape of how you relate to yourself completely. And that's like power, like that's powerful to not need someone to tell you, to not have to go to a hairstylist, pay $75 for a haircut that you maybe didn't even need, to ask them about your dry scalp and then leave with $100 worth of products that you didn't need, and they're probably not going to help. You know what I mean?
Right, right. And I feel like so many hairstylists nowadays, like they here you're going to school to learn about hair, but you're not really learning about hair. Like you're learning about how to manage hair, but not to actually really read the hair and read the scalp. And it's really it's kind of it's confusing. It's like, why do you not know how to support my hair in the way that I need it to be supported? It can be, I think once you realize that and you start to realize, like, okay, my hairstylist is going to know how to cut my hair, know how to kind of prescribe me product and color my hair, but not actually tell me what's going on with my hair truly. It can be very freeing, like you said. Like, I love that idea of everything that our body tells us, it's a message. It's a message. And I think women right now, we still see that there's so much fear, not just fear surrounding our bodies, like, oh no, what is my body doing? Oh no, like, how can I fix this? It's like, there's not that realization of, my body is not against me. My body is for me. It's just telling me, it's speaking a language that I don't understand quite yet. And instead of freaking out, let's learn to read that language. But I also think there's a fear of, I think herbs specifically, there's definitely a lot of fear mongering around herbs. I feel like even in my trainings that I've gotten over the years, it's like, be very careful, you know, like herbs are very scary. Yet they're recommending these supplements that are like full of essential oils, like blast the digestive tract with these like essential oils, but herbs are scary. Why do you think why do you think that is? I think of course there's probably some type of agenda there, but what have you seen?
Well, I mean, if you want to like boil down to it, you can't patent a plant, right?
Yep.
You can't trademark anything. You can pull a constituent out of a plant, like, and patent that, right? Mix it with a couple other things, petroleum, whatever, and patent that. You can pull a constituent out of a plant and turn it into a pharmaceutical med and patent that. You know, you can even like pull a constituent like berberine out of a plant and, do something with it, extract it in a special way, or, mix it with something in a special way and patent that, right? But you can't patent going to your garden, cutting some chamomile and, boiling it on the stove for 5 minutes and straining it and giving it to your kid before bed, right? So I think obviously I think there's two pieces. I don't think herbalism is going to can whole plant medicine is profitable for like the big industries. And I also think that there's also this lens of authority where practitioners and hairstylists and doctors and pretty much anyone, as a formerly licensed hairdresser, I feel like I can speak to my personal experience saying like most people with a license or like a special certification, like there's always like that lens of authority to like the people that you're serving. And I feel like, in hair school, we weren't really told why. We were told horror stories of but don't ever let your clients like take care of their hair on their own, because then they don't need you anymore, right? It was my responsibility to explain to them like the big bad grocery store shampoos and the big bad box color and like make it really scary, right? And I think sometimes, I even see a lot of herbalists doing this where it's like, and I don't agree with this way of teaching, being like, you still need me to teach you how to use herbs safely. And like it puts that authority, that power dynamic there of like, I'll always know more than you, and like you are going to need me. And, essentially I'm always going to be profiting off of you in some way, whether it's just like an ego kick or like you actually paying money for me to teach you how to like safely use these things.
Right. Yeah. Oh, I like that. Yeah. I see it both ways. It's like, it's not profitable, but it's also, there is this kind of hierarchy or this, like, it needs to be, there's gatekeeping a little bit going on. And I love, you're probably the first person I've ever heard talk about use of herbs during pregnancy and breastfeeding and being very intuitive about it. Like herbs are not going to all of a sudden cause this huge problem that you're not going to be able to stop. Like, you're going to be able, as long as you're aware and you're mindful, like if your body is shifting, you can stop and just stop. Like, it's not, but I want to hear a little bit more, because I think that's one of the biggest worries is like, oh, is this safe during pregnancy or breastfeeding? It's like, I am this whole other creature that needs to be, I'm in a very sensitive position.
Yeah. I don't, like, even in pregnancy, I don't subscribe to that idea. We're obviously, like, in our demographics and the women that we work with, a lot of the women we work with are happy to eat raw milk and cheese during pregnancy. They're happy to be, eating seafood and sushi and the things that we say aren't allowed, in the mainstream world. But when it comes to herbs, there's just not enough knowledge. So they're always wondering, like, I've had women ask me if it's safe to use culinary herbs in their cooking while pregnant, because they just don't know, or can I drink this cup of mint tea? And so, for me, I strongly believe, and I feel like I've had enough research and experience and talking to people and, all of this experience and knowledge and wisdom to come to the conclusion that, like, when there's a healthy host and a healthy baby, the body is designed to create life. Like, ultimately, that's what our bodies are created to do. They're created to create and sustain and nurture life. And so this idea, you have women delivering healthy babies during famine and war and all these really, really intense things going on. Or you have women who didn't know they were pregnant and they're doing drugs and they're drinking and all of these things, and their babies are born perfectly fine and healthy.
This episode is sponsored by Lovebird Cereal. Lovebird grain-free cereal was founded by a father on a mission to clean up cereal with real food ingredients that help support gut health and have no fake stuff. Traditional cereal can be loaded with refined grains and refined sugar, along with a lot of fake ingredients. From the first to last ingredient, they are the best you'll find in cereal, starting with prebiotic fiber-rich cassava from small regenerative family farms as the first ingredient. Finally, a cereal you can confidently serve your family that also tastes great. I personally love seeing Lovebird on the shelves at my local Sprouts, and I recently made these delicious Rice Krispie inspired strawberry treats with their strawberry cereal and Toonie Mooney marshmallow cream, and they turned out so good. Use code Jessica Ash for 10% off your order at lovebirdfoods.com.
So, I mean, that tells a lot. And so I became really interested in this idea of, like, okay, so what happened really is, and my interest came before I got pregnant with my second daughter, but what really drove it home for me was I live in the Dominican Republic now, and so herbs are called different things and in a different language. And I was really sick, and I was drinking this tea, and every time I would drink it, I would get really nauseous. And I thought it was peppermint tea, and it turns out it was pennyroyal tea, which is like a famous abortifacient. And I drank it for like a week straight, and even though it was making me nauseous. And then later I figured out what it was, and I was like, well, no wonder it was making me nauseous. Like, my body was telling me no,
Right.
And my daughter's perfect, but I decided to study, like, herbal abortion with the intent of learning, like, how far, like, what actually makes a human, like a healthy mother's body, just like lose a pregnancy intentionally with the use of plants. And what I learned is that it's very, very, very difficult. You actually, because you're essentially using plants to mimic, certain hormones and physiological processes in the body. So you're using a combination of different plants, one thing to mimic oxytocin and another thing to mimic something else and another thing, to help start the uterus to contract. And so it's like a very specific combination of herbs with specific herbal actions. And the dose for these herbs are quite high and quite frequent. So in order to make the body specifically just abort a pregnancy, you have to be like, I'm talking like you're setting your alarm for 1 o'clock in the morning to take your dose of herbs, and this is happening for, several days, maybe even I've heard of it happening for weeks sometimes. and it doesn't always work. It's a very fine window between a certain amount. Like I think it's like between 6 and 8 weeks of pregnancy, or like 4 and 8 weeks of pregnancy, where it can actually happen. It doesn't always happen, and most women who do this type of work actually usually will advise that women go a medical route before they try herbs, unless there's a reason that preventing them from doing that, who are seeking this out, because it's not actually very reliable. And the thing I think that's most important to know, and what really gave me permission to like nail in the coffin on my opinion about using herbs during pregnancy, is that women who tried to abort their pregnancies with plants, who it did not work, and they went on to have their babies, all of their babies were born perfectly healthy. There's no evidence to suggest that those herbs harmed the baby in pregnancy. And so I think that's just really powerful and important to understand, that like, you know, that the perspective of like, something external is going to cause my body to spontaneously just like lose this pregnancy. It doesn't serve us during pregnancy, and it's not actually true. And I think, we could get into the medical model saying that maybe that mindset is promoted because it makes us more reliant. You know what I mean? It makes us more reliant on them. And when we go, if, a woman has a loss, like, and she's devastated, and she goes to the doctor because of course she wants to know why, how easy is it to be like, and they probably don't even realize, because their training says the same thing, like, oh, you said you had a cup of peppermint tea yesterday, that's probably what did it. You know what I mean? Because they blame what you don't know, and you blame what you don't understand. And it's really sad that this is kind of the mindset, because now I can only think of maybe just a couple herbs off the top of my head that I'm actually not okay with using during pregnancy. And it's because they're just like really strong, like anti-parasitics or things like that, that are kind of hard on the gut.
Like wormwood, or like, I think of like black walnut, like those types of herbs.
Those are the two. Yeah. And it's just because like, it's like the microbiome is so important during pregnancy. And like, your microbiome is simplifying during pregnancy, so that baby gets all that good lactobacillus bacteria. And I personally don't want to like mess with that process. But
I love that.
Yeah. So everything else I feel like is fair game. And if you just lean on your intuition. If you're feeling called to take an herb that normally is a no-no during pregnancy, and you want to do it, try it. And guess what? If your belly starts tightening and you feel you're having a contraction, you're like, that's interesting. And then you take that herb again and it happens again. You're like, okay, maybe this herb isn't for me right now. I'm going to try something else. But guess what? You can just stop taking it and then you're fine. Herbs have a quick half-life. It's not going to set something in motion that you can't come back from, unless you're setting your alarm at 1:00 in the morning and taking it alongside a bunch of other different herbs. And like, you're really dedicated with that intention. But, we need to build that trust in ourselves and our bodies in that way.
Absolutely. That's so empowering. Your take on it is so empowering, because it takes away the, oh no, like I am going to make a misstep, and very rarely, like you said, it takes a lot of intention to cause any problems.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow. I love how you said called to a certain herb. Do you feel like herbalism and just use of herbs in general is a very kind of intuitive, instinctual process? How do you approach herbs? Because there's so many out there and they all have such amazing benefits. I think sometimes when people think, I want to get started with herbs, but where do I even start? Like, what does that look like?
I think it can be very intuitive, I think that, generally it's important to like pick up on just like the signals that like the universe is sending you, So like maybe for a lot of women, it's like, there's a lot of herbs that are like a big deal right now, like reishi or ashwagandha. And I'll have women come to me and be like, I keep hearing about ashwagandha. Like, maybe I should try it. And I'm like, yeah, that's probably a good idea. You probably should look into it, because if you're hearing about it a lot, maybe you're supposed to be taking it, Yeah. Or there's like an herbalist saying that like the herbs that grow in your backyard are the ones you need the most. So like, you know, oh my God, this dandelion plant just started growing in my backyard and I've never had that before. Like, well, why don't you look up dandelion and like see if it could be supportive to you. But I think the most important, like the best way to start is, just taking it one at a time. And, you know, you hear about an herb that you all of a sudden feel like your interest is piqued, you know, or like you feel like excited about trying it, then read about it and also like take it, like, you know, order some dried herb online, order a tincture and take it and see what happens to your body when you take it, you know, and you'll learn more. It's like meeting a new friend. If I can read about your Instagram all day long and like think I know who you are, right? But then I can have an hour-long conversation with you on the phone and know you way more after an hour than I have 2 years of following you on Instagram, you know? So like reading about the herbs are great and it's great to like have that foundation, but like using them is what's really how you're going to get to know them, because you're learning how they interact with your body. And like you can read that cinnamon is a warming herb, but it's not until you've bit a little bit of cinnamon off when you're using it in cooking that you feel that warming on your tongue and you realize what that really means, you know?
Right. Wow. Yeah, I love that idea. That looking at it as a new friend, I think that's so cute and so beautiful. So I love how you mentioned the microbiome, and I guess that brings us into the essential oil conversation. I think a lot of women say, well, I use herbs all the time. I'm using essential oils. You know, I have all the therapeutic grade essential oil collection on the pretty little shelf. And so I am so into herbs, but for those that maybe don't know the difference between essential oils and herbs, could you just kind of give like a 101 on the difference?
Yeah, so essential oils are extracted from herbs. So herbs are made up of hundreds and hundreds of chemicals and constituents, and you know, kind of divided into different categories. So you have alkaloids, which are a very like they're responsible for a lot of medicinal properties. There's tannins, which a lot of us are familiar with. Like if you've ever they tighten tissue. So like if you've ever oversteeped black tea before and drink it and you feel that tightness on your tongue, like that's from the tannins. There's like, you know, obviously nutritive constituents like vitamins and minerals. And then there's what we call volatile oil constituents, which that means that it sounds very aggressive, volatile oils, but essentially what it means is that it dissipates into the air easily. It's volatile, right? It can evaporate easily. And those are the part of the plant that's typically responsible for the fragrance, aka what we've kind of rebranded into calling them essential oils, because that sounds so much better than volatile oils. And essential oils, I mean, they have been studied. There are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of studies out there talking about how medicinally powerful they are, right? And that's not a lie. That is true. Just like alkaloids are very powerful and tannins are very powerful and nutritive constituents are very powerful. Like all of that power is in the plant, and that's why they work so well. But the issue that I have with essential oils, this is just not with essential oils, it's isolating any plant compound, but is when you take essential oils away from the plant, you know, there's a vital intelligence of nature that's kind of a set of like checks and balances against one another. And their constituents are formulated. If you look at it on paper, it appears to be formulated like very intentionally. So, for example, like the herb nettle, a lot of women like to drink nettle infusions. And one of the things about nettle is that it's a diuretic, right? And so it makes you lose a lot of liquid very quickly. And so the problem with taking a diuretic is that you typically tend to lose a lot of potassium, and that's a problem. But nettle is very, very rich in potassium. So you're replacing the potassium that you're losing from the diuretic action, right? So there's no need to worry about that when you're using nettle as a diuretic. Meadowsweet, which is an herb that we derive aspirin from. It's rich in salicylic acid. And salicylic acid is naturally very hard on the stomach, right? We know that taking aspirin too much in the stomach can cause issues. And, it's just, it can be hard on the stomach. Well, Meadowsweet naturally contains a lot of a constituent called mucilage, which coats the lining of the stomach, right? So the salicylic acid can't irritate the stomach. So there's nature has its own set of checks and balances in in whole plant medicine and in its intact, perfect world. And so when we take a constituent out of that plant and give it to somebody on their own, that's when you can exploit the properties of that plant or of that particular constituent. So essential oils are found in a very, very small amount of the plant. If you distill a pound of, mint, you might get 1 drop of mint essential oil, right?
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
It just, it's different in all of them. Every plant or fruit or herb or whatever will have a different percentage of essential oils, but they're generally less than 1% in the plant. So, beyond the idea that think of how much mint you'd have to distill to fill up a little bottle, that's a lot of waste, right?
Yes.
But also you would never come across that much mint naturally. And you wouldn't you put a drop or 2 of mint in your water, you wouldn't eat that much mint in real life, right? So you're exploding those properties. And the amount of essential oil that you were supposed to, come across after drinking mint tea every day for a month, all of a sudden you've gotten it in 1 dose.
Wow.
And so and essential oils are antimicrobial, and that can be really beneficial when you're, using whole plant lavender and you want a little bit of antimicrobial action. But when you're taking lavender essential oil, all of a sudden that antimicrobial action is magnified so much. And, because it's volatile and because, it easily goes into the air, and a lot of us are diffusing it and putting it in our skin and breathing it in and, putting them in neti pots and doing all this stuff, you're getting those in your mucous membranes. You're breathing them in. They're going into your lungs, into your mouth, on your skin. And, that's your body's first line of defense against everything, is your mucous membranes. And, that has its own, microbiome specific to defending you from external pathogens that look completely different than the microbiome in your gut. And obviously you have a different microbiome in your skin. And all of that has the potential to be altered in a negative way by using essential oils so casually. This is the biggest experiment. This is a huge experiment. I mean, once people kind of woke up to the idea that fragrances are harmful, essential oils have replaced everything. You can't walk down the natural aisle at Whole Foods, the natural personal care aisle, and not find something without essential oils in it. It's in your shampoo, it's in your lotion, it's in the body wash, it's in the toothpaste, it's in everything. And we have, it's in the children's classrooms at school. It's in your chiropractors diffusing it when you go in their office. Even your doctor, who's a little bit more natural minded, might have an essential oil diffuser. I mean, it's hard to escape that in the natural world. And we actually don't know the long-term consequences of bombarding ourselves. We're doing it quite the same way that, people were doing with fragrance.
Yes.
20, 30 years ago, when your toilet paper scented, your paper towels are scented, things that don't make sense to be scented, everything's scented, and then we're having problems, right?
Yes. Yes.
So,
and I think the argument, and I hope anyone that's listening that kind of has the argument that says, but my essential oils are therapeutic grade, so it's different. I think that's what I hear more than anything else. It's just well, it's different. And I think that's really powerful kind of MLM marketing that has been done. But in reality, it's not about the quality of the essential oils. It's more about, would you come across this amount of the essential oil of this plant in nature? And the answer to that is no.
Right. And we're talking about the true properties of the pure plant. Lavender is antimicrobial. So it's not like you're taking lavender essential oil and diluting it with a bunch of crap and selling it for $5 at Walmart, and it's the crap that's hurting you. The crap will definitely hurt you, right. But the lavender essential oil on itself is also even the 1 drop, the pure, they have the actions that we're talking about.
Right. And I know once I learned this from you and kind of woke up to that. I've come across, I mean, I just think that a lot of people use essential oils, especially around their children, so recklessly. I would go as far as to say recklessly, almost as if like this can do no harm. But are children more sensitive to these volatile compounds than adults?
I think so. Yeah, I think the younger they are, the more sensitive. Like, like I talked about earlier, and I know you know a lot about this too. As infants, we are colonized with the vaginal microbiome of our mothers when we pass through the birth canal,
Yeah.
which is why a lot of women find during pregnancy that their vaginal pH shifts, and they might be prone to a lot of infection, or they might have a sensitivity to something that they've been using before. And it's because that our microbiome shifts and starts to prioritize lactobacillus strains of bacteria so that our baby can get a lot of those. And once baby is born and they pass through the vaginal canal and they have all of our liquids and fluids and everything on their body, there's even a strain. I think this is so cool, and I love to talk about it. There's even a strain of probiotic that babies get from fecal matter when mother has a bowel movement during labor, that actually goes straight into the gut and starts rapidly producing vitamin K, which I think is so cool, because babies, the doctors will say babies are vitamin K deficient, but it's all nature's design, right? So they're supposed to get colonized with everything that we have. And about an hour to 2 hours after being born, what happens, ideally they're born, they get their first couple of drinks of colostrum. And then about 3 hours after birth, their gut gets sealed. And that creates their first microbiome, right? That creates the microbiome, and that microbiome starts to flourish, and it's going to adjust and evolve and, just kind of start growing. It's like baby seedling garden stage, up until 100 days of life. And then that is kind of sets a stage for their microbiome for infancy. And then up to two to 3 years, it's going to continue to evolve based on, what babies eat, what the child is eating, the health of the mother, environmental factors in the home, etc. And then they say that the microbiome that a child has between the age of 2 and 3 sets the stage for their gut health for the rest of their life. That is their seed, that is their core, right?
Yeah.
And so, doulas love their lavender essential oil on, their little handkerchief that they have mom breathe during labor. They tell you in Hypnobabies classes to bring your essential oil diffuser to the hospital so you don't have to smell the hospital smells. All the baby, if you go to look at the natural baby products, all the baby bubble bath has essential oils in it, and think about that important physiological moment when your baby is born, and we don't see their gut their microbiome forming that they could potentially have for the rest of their life. But now imagine baby taking their first breaths, and they're supposed to be breathing in all this bacteria and fluid and important stuff that's going to create their gut health. And instead they're getting hit with lavender essential oil that's being diffused in the air. Yeah. That's scary, right? Because that's essentially you can be wiping out that whole, you're messing with physiology. You know what I mean? So, I think that the use can be very thoughtless. And a lot of people, the thing is a lot of people don't know what I just told you. No. You know what I mean? And think of if more moms were pregnant and knew how important their vaginal microbiome was during pregnancy and knew that process, I think they would do a lot more to ensure that first hour of life that's fostered. My first daughter was born during C-section, via C-section, like I said earlier. And I actually gave her infant probiotics in the hospital, within the first hour of her life, because I knew about that. And I was I knew that she didn't get the bacteria that she was supposed to. And so I gave her those. And, neither of my kids have ever had gas, never.
Wow.
They've never had gas. They were both very calm babies. No major spitting up, no discomfort.
Wow. And what a simple thing that you did. It's not I think if every mom knew that, they would be oh, that's so simple. Of course.
Yeah.
I'll have it in the bag.
Yeah.
Oh man. I think as women hear about this, I think there might be like some programming that, especially when you hear the talking points over and over again about how amazing essential oils are and how natural they are. But once you hear this, it's like it really comes down to, are we messing with our biological design? It's not necessarily if something is natural or toxic. It goes deeper, and is it supportive to our physiology or not? And I know personally, I have just a few acquaintances who this has happened multiple times to a few acquaintances I've heard, but their baby had just a regular cold, and they started diffusing peppermint essential oil, and it escalated to a respiratory distress situation. And not recognizing that these oils can be so distressing for these respiratory tissues that are already in a little bit of distress or imbalanced, and it escalates very quickly. And I think mothers just don't realize it because essential oils are promoted as natural. Like, why wouldn't we use them? They're almost promoted as medicine, not realizing how powerful they really are.
Yep.
Mm. Mm. Well, oh my gosh, I think just all of that alone, listeners are going to be like, oh my gosh, that is crazy. So maybe we'll move to something a little lighter. And I mean, I have loved watching you build Subluna. I just am in awe of you having this kind of small herbal shop and have it just explode. And all of your products are amazing. When I scroll your shop, I mean, first of all, every time it drops, I think the drops happen on Friday, I'll get an email. And by the time I'm in there, I'm like, oh, sold out, sold out, sold out, which is an amazing problem to have. But I am like, oh, I missed out. There's so many incredible products in there. It's like, I want all of them. I want to have like a whole apothecary of just all your products. So I am just curious for people listening, what are some of your favorite herbs for, let's say, beauty?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I love my two favorite herbs for beauty right now. Tremella mushroom is one. And a lot of people don't know about tremella mushroom. It's a big like TCM, like traditional Chinese medicine herb. But we hear a lot about reishi and turkey tail and chaga, but tremella mushroom is the coolest mushroom. Like when it's not dried, it's very like gelatinous and jelly, and it's essentially like what it looks like in real life is what it does for the body. So it enables the body to hold moisture, and so it's very, very hydrating, and it allows the body to produce its own hyaluronic acid, and it helps with certain enzymes in the body, that it helps fight certain enzymes in the body that reduce our elasticity. So basically everything it's doing is like, if you think about like that youthful skin, like it's very hydrated, it's very glowy, it hasn't lost elasticity yet. The hyaluronic acid keeps everything nice and full. It's just like that essence of youth. And it's because it's so hydrating, it's really, really good for the gut. It's really good for the stomach, and it's really good for the lungs, because essentially like a lot of us, which I'm sure you see in your practice too, is like a lot of us are really chronically dehydrated. We don't really, it doesn't matter how much water we drink, or, it doesn't matter how much raw milk we're pounding. Like if our bodies can't, like if our cells aren't hydrated enough to hold on to all of the wonderful things we're putting into it, then we're not going to get as much benefit of like all of that nourishment that we're putting in our bodies. And so tremella mushroom can really act as hydration on like a cellular level for the body, to just like revitalize our cells and allow them to hold on to so much more. So that's my favorite herb. And it's a really mild profile. And my favorite way to prepare it, if you can order, maybe like looking on Etsy, like order just like one dried tremella mushroom and just like simmer it on the stove until it turns into jelly, and then combine it with equal parts honey and put it in the fridge. And you can just take a spoonful of that whenever you want. And it tastes so good. And it's just like it's just like such a simple tonic,
Yes, yes, that is amazing. I'm going to do that today.
Yeah, do it.
Do you put it on topically as well?
Yeah, and you can put it in your hair. You can put it on your face. Our matcha that we have in Subluna, we do it. It's like green tea, rose, and tremella, and you can do it as a face mask too. And it's like so amazing for your skin. Okay. So yeah, I love using tremella topically too. But
that's like gold right there.
It is gold. And then the other one that I'd like to talk about is schizandra. It's called the beauty berry. It's another TCM herb. But it's super, super high in antioxidants, which are always a good thing, help fight free radicals and cellular aging, and also has a really strong liver action. And so, it helps support, beauty basically from the inside out, helping the body like move through anything that's like stagnant, that can kind of tend to spill out through the skin. So that's like, acne or eczema or whatever, stuff like that, that's caused maybe from that stagnant liver action. That people sometimes need a little bit of support with, but it doesn't do it on like a really intense detox level. It's more just like a gentle nudge. And so I think you can take it for a little bit. Like you don't really feel like you're detoxing, and you don't have a lot of like the big symptoms that you'd have from taking like those stronger skin herbs that are going to like purge you,
Yeah, I've heard of it, and it's like it's mentioned in a lot of like hormone balancing circles. A lot of people will say that it boosts progesterone, and so I find that really interesting that it is considered a beauty herb. I did not know that. Just a question for sourcing herbs: is it important where you source them? Like, do you usually source herbs from? I know you probably have your sources, but let's say for somebody that is trying to source some herbs just for their own personal use. Do you usually turn to like smaller growers like on Etsy, or are there places that are reliable to go? Like, does sourcing matter?
Yeah, I mean, it can. So it's definitely important, obviously. I think Etsy is a great place to shop for herbs.
Okay.
Because you get access to a lot of small makers and small farmers and stuff like that. And so that is it's always like, if you can't find something, check Etsy, because they'll probably have it. And it's a big network of small local people. Right. But even just like going to, if you live in a place that has like a really nice health food store, a lot of times they're going to have a bulk herb section. And even if you talk to them, like chances are they can order whatever you want. And there's also like, there's so many good small online herbal farmers, that do some sort of, either they sell online or they have a list that they'll email you every month and you can tell them what you want, or things like that. It's really easy, especially in the age of Instagram, to find people who have a really good quality farm with like good solid foundations, who are making or growing and selling herbs. So
Awesome. Yeah, that's super, super helpful. I mean, I know you are, I can't imagine are you making all of the herbs yourself, or all of the tinctures, or do you have a team working? Because I have just seen Sabluna explode, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, that is so much. Do you feel like as you've expanded your company, were there stressors and big decisions that you had to make? Like, how do you manage your stress and keep yourself balanced as well as being present as a mother?
I mean, yeah. So especially, I live in Dominican Republic now, and my business is based out of Omaha. So I've had to really learn the art of delegation. And I'm really lucky that I've always had some really powerful female entrepreneurs in my life that I've watched from a young age run their businesses really well. And I've also watched a lot of women run their businesses and get totally burned out because they're doing so much. And I do have a really strong like persona that says that like nobody can do it as good as me. And that's like, that could be my worst enemy if I let it. But I think I've really had some people teach me the art of delegation and learning how to, through like mentorship and leadership, versus just like hiring someone to do a job and like not caring how it gets done, but like actually. So like I have my shop manager for Sabluna, who, she cares about the brand as much as I do. And it's been really great to grow the company with her. And we have an intern that is doing really well and really she loves being there, and we love having her. And then, everyone on my back end team, like the admin work and stuff like that, like everyone's just really invested in the brand and its growth and our customer service and everything. And so it's kind of like a little family. And so I feel really safe to like not do it all by myself, like I have that security because I have the confidence in the people who I choose to delegate to.
That's so beautiful. Like, I think a lot of my listeners are always thinking, I want to follow my passions, I want to follow my dreams, but I'm afraid, it's going to be too much, or how am I going to get there? So it's always inspiring to see women that are doing, really you're doing it all, but you are leaning on just a strong community for support. And I think that's important for anyone listening. We need other people. It's not just going to be a one-man show. It's not just an island.
Takes a village for so many things.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I appreciate you so much. Is there anything you want